Moreover, we, as EABL, or East African Breweries, affirmed our support for the UN Global Compact. We are globally recognized for adopting and tracking the most sustainable development goals, 12 out of 17 of them, in our business strategy across the region. And here, allow me to thank the SBL board, Serengeti Breweries Limited board, the EABL board, and indeed members of staff of Serengeti Breweries and our partners that John ably mentioned for your immense contribution towards our efforts to achieve this. Ladies and gentlemen, we are all witnesses to some, and some of us are even victims of the unprecedented challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic. Therefore, in responding to this uncertainty, Serengeti Breweries, and by extension EABL and Diageo, immediately rolled out measures to protect and safeguard the health of our employees and the communities in which our supply chains operate. And through Society 2030, Serengeti Breweries has implemented a number of sustainability projects across Tanzania, focusing on community engagement and empowerment. I'd like to take this opportunity to speak about SBL's achievements in Tanzania, but before that, allow me to register our gratitude to the government of the United Republic of Tanzania for the support and in the creation of a stable and sustainable economy for businesses like ours to operate. It would be practically impossible for us to be gathered here this morning to speak about the impact that we have had on the community and on our programs and in our programs if the peaceful business environment that I've spoken about did not exist in Tanzania. So asante sana. And for this, we have taken the lead as the best performing, most trusted and respected consumer goods company in Tanzania in seeking to empower communities around the country through the following initiatives. Positive drinking being the first. Under positive drinking, we have embraced moderation, or rather we embrace moderation in drinking and consumption as a way of a balanced lifestyle. We, as SBL, have reached thousands of people with moderation messages, positioning SBL as a stakeholder in promoting road safety. And related to this, our Don't Drink and Drive campaign has reached 300,000 people across the country, including bus drivers, university students, border riders, tuk-tuk riders, and pedestrians. Championing inclusion and diversity. We have provided education and training opportunities to youth in the communities where we operate to help them prepare for employment through our Kilimo Viwanda scholarship program. To date, this program has sponsored over 100 students for their entire period of studies in local colleges where they pursue Agri-related courses. And these are bright, talented students from underprivileged homes in the communities where we source our raw materials for beer manufacturing. And at our manufacturing facilities, we have a team, which is the first in Africa, an all-female crew that operate our newly built spirits manufacturing line in Moshi. This is female gender inclusion, and we're creating an experience in doing this that is comparable to none. We have also taken a progressive approach by reframing our inclusion and diversity strategy to incorporate a focus on people with disabilities. We have chosen to play the role of employer, advocate, and partner in empowering people with disabilities and the PWD agenda in Tanzania, and you will be hearing from us about that in due course. Pioneering grain to glass sustainability. We have made significant contributions in the following key areas. One, water stewardship. Through our water program, dubbed Water of Life, we have implemented 21 water projects in water-stressed areas in 8 regions that provide clean and safe water to over 2 million beneficiaries. And this program endeavors to replenish by 100% every drop of water that we use in our operations. 2, we have reduced our carbon emissions by 50% while using 100% of sustainable energy across our direct operations, hence becoming net zero carbon in our direct operations. And 3, in line with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, we have stepped up our efforts to protect the environment by planting thousands of trees. Same, Kongwa, and many other areas which are prone to drought in Tanzania. We'll continue to keep waste from our operations to a minimum and to run our operations and supply chains in a manner that contributes to a circular economy. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to make exceptional deep dive into the pioneering grain to glass sustainability pillar by talking about our Agri business program. I do this recognizing that this is a pertinent subject that will be tackled here shortly in our panel discussions, and I'm glad and grateful for our great panelists for joining us this morning. And the panel discussion will be titled, Building Resilience in the Agricultural Sector in Tanzania. We have lined up some of the country's best minds and experts in the agricultural field to share their insights on what Tanzania is doing and can do better to create a truly sustainable agricultural sector. For SBL, ours is a win-win strategy with the agricultural sector. In 2020, we sourced over 20,000 tons of grain from our local farmers, which is a great percentage of our annual total raw material requirements for beer manufacturing. The cereals we buy are mainly barley, maize, and sorghum of over 400 farmers that we have established across the country. And how do we make this happen? Our agribusiness program supports the farmers in many ways. We assist them combat the effects of climate change. We provide them with regular training on sustainable farming and financial management. We give them free and high-quality drought-resistant seeds. We help them with early warning assessments, as well as link them to financial institutions to access credit facilities. We believe that our Kilimo Viwanda scholarship program is now training more experts and is an added impetus to creating more resilience in the Tanzania's agriculture sector. Our commitment is to continue scaling up the farmers' networks, increase our level of sourcing and partner with stakeholders like you present here this morning to uplift the welfare of our farmers. I believe we all share this appetite to create resilience in our agricultural sector. Ladies and gentlemen, we are very proud to operate in the right way in our business operations. This means doing business with integrity and trust the way we work, every day, everywhere, while facing uncertainty and challenges together. That is why in June this year, we launched the Raise the Bar program, where we are investing over 2.3 billion shillings to support 2,000 retail outlets in the fight against communicable diseases, including COVID-19. This program is already up and running in the cities of Dar es Salaam, Arusha, Mwanza, and Zanzibar, where we are providing bars with hygiene equipment, education, and other forms of support needed to tackle this pandemic. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to thank you once again for attending this function and for coming to join us despite your busy schedules. We look forward to working with the government, regulators, our partners, and the entire community to maintain the robust growth of our economy, particularly the agricultural sector, which we will be talking about this morning. With those few remarks, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to invite my board chairman, John Ulanga, to give his opening remarks as well. Thank you.
Asante sana, Mark. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you. The Acting British High Commissioner, my friend Rick Shan, distinguished representatives from other embassies and missions in Tanzania. I recognize the presence of a representative from the French Embassy. I also know there's a colleague from the UK Department for International Trade. I think I saw Godfrey somewhere. Mark, the MD for Serengeti Breweries, staff, management, members of the press, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Board of Directors of Serengeti Breweries, I'm humbled to welcome all of you to this historic occasion. I really want also, as Mark has said, I want to thank you for honoring our invitations early in the morning to attend this important day in which Serengeti Breweries and by extension East African Breweries and also by extension Diageo is launching our sustainability report for the year 2020. So I want really first to thank Mark and colleagues from Serengeti Breweries for all the organizations for this event, but also thank all of you for making it possible for us to start this event almost on time. Now, why are we here? Yes, it's the launch of the sustainability report for 2020. But more importantly, it's a message that we are sending as Serengeti Breweries and as EABL, that our focus is not only to make profits for our shareholders. A company would like to make profit, and we are proud that, yes, as a company, Serengeti Breweries, we are making a lot of progress in terms of profits and dividends to our shareholders. But we, as Serengeti Breweries, guided by our parent company, East African Breweries, and also guided by our international shareholder, Diageo, we are learning the best practices that companies should not only look at profit, we should look at beyond profits and look at the contribution we are making to society in terms of environment, in terms of community enhancement, and the contribution to the global agenda, for example, MDG agenda. So Mark has elaborated issues pertaining to the Sustainability Report 2020, which I would not like to repeat, but I just want to emphasize the significance this report documents key sustainability initiatives that EABL has undertaken in the region. And Tanzania being part of the companies under EABL, we are making enormous impact, as Mark also has highlighted, on communities. And this is a result of in-depth research that Serengeti Breweries undertook that identified the areas, for example, the interventions in agriculture sector that will be important to enhance sustainability of our economy. So this report, as we've heard, captures community program. Also for other EABL subsidiaries, the Uganda Breweries Limited, which I think is marking 75 years today. Kenya Breweries, which I think will be marking 100 years next year. So the report provides a glimpse also of the Diageo global strategy. The sustainability interventions are part of the Diageo global strategy on sustainability, but it also captures the more urgent economic, social, and governance issues that mirror how the company has been working with the most vulnerable communities, focusing on the pillars of society 2030 that also Mark alluded to. As already mentioned also by Mark, Society 2020, which looks at the spirit of progress, is a 10-year action plan that requires us to help create a more inclusive, a more sustainable world. So we are building on the legacy of our founding fathers, of our shareholders, to make a positive impact in our company, with our communities, and for the society. We believe this will enable communities to continue to celebrate life every day, everywhere, which is our tagline. And therefore, our goal of promoting positive drinking, diversity, and inclusive communities, and also pioneering grain to grass initiative that Mark also talked about, but also looking at doing business in the right way that is geared towards the overall objective and vision of our company. So we believe this report is making a statement of our allegiance in terms of striving to creating a positive impact in our community, in our company, but also in our country at large. As we know, Tanzania is rising, the economy is rising, the population is also expanding rapidly. So we want to live up to the expectations in terms of our business and also technology to align with the growth of the economy and the growth of the population. And this is in line with the ambition of our company to becoming the best performing, most trusted, and respected consumer products company in Tanzania. That's what Serengeti Breweries aims to be. And we are getting there. This is what also motivates us to take the lead in supporting and empowering communities, like also Mark has alluded. The interventions we are doing, for example, in agriculture sector are also part of our motivation to making it possible for us to support and empower communities. Now, Mark has alluded, and we will hear in the conversations today, the contributions that you are making as SBL to develop agriculture sector in Tanzania. Because basically, our industry is an agri industry. And therefore, going forward, SBL will seek to increase our sourcing of local materials by recruiting additional farmers to our agribusiness program, hence creating opportunities to additional large and smallholder farmers to actually get access to market, or easy access to market through our company. And to realize that, we'll probably and obviously need to work harder with our stakeholders like yourselves in agriculture sector. And therefore, we look forward to forging this partnership so that we can increase our contribution to our economy. Now, we live in an era where COVID-19 has had an impact in businesses. Much as we are lucky as a country where just that other countries have undertaken, but as companies, we have to gear our businesses in a way that it becomes more resilient, but also on the other side, taking advantage of the opportunities that we have in Tanzania to grow business, but also to grow the economy of individuals. And therefore, agriculture sector presents a big opportunity for stakeholders, for farmers, for manufacturers, for government and others to come together and strategize on how our country can take advantage and produce not only enough for our economy, but also enough for export. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank SBL team for organizing this. I'd like to appreciate the partnership between Diageo, EABL, SBL, and also local shareholders. You also know Serengeti Breweries is 85% shareholding or owned by East African Breweries, 15% owned by Tanzanian stakeholders. So we really like to appreciate this partnership between international companies and local shareholders to create a brand and a company that is really contributing to sustainability of our economy. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm told there's a 3-minute documentary that will provide a very high-level summary of the Sustainability Report 2020. So I invite you to watch that. And after that, I will also invite you to participate in what I know is going to be very insightful panel discussion on building resilience in the agriculture sector. Knowing all the panelists, I'm sure you're going to enjoy the conversations. Asanteni sana na asubuhi njema.
EABL's inaugural Sustainability Report is the product of 2 years of research and design, including a detailed materiality assessment. The report highlights our accomplishments between financial year 2020 and financial year 2021 as part of the Diageo Society 2030 Spirit of Progress. EABL promoting positive drinking, supporting informed choices, positive messaging, knowledge and awareness spread to over 13 million in the region. EABL championing inclusion and diversity. Women in leadership. 14% of those in our senior leadership roles are women. 7.4% increase in female hires, majorly a result of our graduate programs focusing on building gender diversity. 42% of our board are women. Business and hospitality skills training. Over 500 youth trained over the year and equipped with skills to improve their employability and ability to start their own entrepreneurial journey. Over 5,000 bartenders trained in our Diageo Bar Academy. EABL pioneering grain to glass sustainability. Caring for water. Improved water availability and access for 30,000 people in Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania between 2020 and 2021. Between 2020 to 2021, 198,000 cubic meter of water used on our site was replenished and reused. Between 2016 to date, a total of 1,006,138 cubic meters of water has been replenished. This represents 30.6% of our target to replenish 3,282,463 cubic meters of water by 2026. Tackling global climate change. 20.6% reduction in Scope 1 and 2 emissions between 2019 and 2021. Our sites across Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania utilize an average of 82% renewable energy, achieving zero waste. We maintain zero waste in our direct operations and zero waste to landfill throughout our supply chain. Collaborating with farmers to regenerate landscapes. We provide more than 60,000 farmers across Kenya, Tanzania and Uganda with agricultural skills and resources to support sustainable farming practices. EABL doing business the right way. Closing the gap. 5 million raised to support our bars and restaurants negatively impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Occupational health and safety. 36% reduction in total safety incidents and 100% pass in safety audits. 65% decline in reported breaches of code of conduct. At EABL, we continue to impact our company, our communities and society positively, and it will drive our business in 2021 and beyond. EABL's inaugural sustainability report is the product of 2 years of
Thank you so much for the video, which I'm sure gives us the insight of what this report is all about. But let me also take this opportunity to announce that the report is available on the EABL website. So please visit eabl.com and you'll be able to access this report. Ladies and gentlemen, now we come to the point where we want to embark on our panel discussion, whose topic you've heard is building resilience in Tanzania's agricultural sector. Mark and the chairman have already mentioned why we have chosen this topic. We are predominantly an agri-based industry. We source our raw materials for beer manufacturing from 400 farmers, as it was mentioned, and it is therefore in our best interest spend time to talk about what, as a country, we need to do to make this so important sector that is also dependent by over 65% of our population. To lead this discussion, we have lined up very capable panelists, 5 of them, and a moderator who is going to lead the panelists to give us their insight. That moderator is none other than the co-founder of Launchpad. Launchpad is a Tanzanian NGO that is involved in sustainable development activities, gender, digitalization, education, as well as skills development. So, ladies and gentlemen, allow me now to invite to the stage Carol Ndosi to take us through this session. Welcome, Carol.
A very good morning to you. I am a bit conflicted because this is not the kind of energy I'm used to working with. I hope everybody had coffee. You see, this is not even how. Can I do something very unconventional, please? Thank you very much. Now, good morning again. Good morning? We can do better. Good morning. Right, so before we embark into this panel, I'd like to ask you one question. What could be the alternative word? Now, this is the panel, so I'm going to stay away from you. What could be the alternative word for sustainable? What's the first alternative word that comes to mind? Sir.
I know, it's a tricky one, straight on the spot in the morning. Sort of continuous, long-lived.
Long-lived. You gave an answer, Mark. That's not nice. Alternative word?
Lasting.
Lasting, I like. Alternative word?
Future.
Future, interesting. One last one, alternative word.
Continuity.
Continuity. How about progress? How about climate? How about water? Yeah? But did I jolt your minds, kidogo? Are we together now? Yes? Okay, I like that. Thank you very much. Now allow me to call to the stage my first panelist, Mr. Geoffrey Kirenga, who is the Chief Executive Officer of SAGOT. With his work, Karibu Sana, Principal, Mzumbe University, Dar es Salaam campus. I would also like to call to the stage Mr. Odex Rukonge, who is the Executive Director of ANSAF. Karibu Sana. And all the way from Agri Info, the only woman on the panel, and as a gender inclusion, I will speak to EABL about this. I also think that we can do better with the numbers that I saw. Yes, 17%, 7.
The government needs the private sector in the production. The private sector needs the government in setting up roads, procedures, but also building infrastructure, some research work, and many other support services, including energy, water, and the like. The private sector also have to play a role. For example, in the business of, I like the information from the CEO of EABL Tanzania, where I say the business of EABL is the business of agriculture. They are working with our private sector companies, working in the seed, in fertilizers, but also in the crop protection, in transportation, storage, the whole value chain of barley, wheat, sorghum, and maize. That provides the raw materials that can be used in making of beer and spirits. Therefore, in those companies, that is where the knowledge, skills, experience in increasing productivity is available. And when these companies work with smallholder farmers, they impart that knowledge. And actually, there's one major transformation happening in Tanzania and agriculture, which is not necessarily known. There used to be only big businesses and then millions of smallholder farmers. And in between, we used to have what we call the missing middle. This missing middle now is no longer the missing middle, but is actually the neglected middle, responsible for the production of up to 35% of the food that is produced in Tanzania. And these are the kind of businesses where ENBL can actually work with in order to produce the products that they need as raw materials. But each one of these missing middle, which is now called neglected middle, they work with millions of smallholder farmers. Each one of them makes with a number of smallholder farmers. And therefore, through working with SMEs, or medium-sized companies, medium-sized businesses, you actually increase your reach to smallholder farmers. Let me stop here, but I think the business here calls for greater participation and involvement of smallholder farmers. But let me maybe conclude by sharing the following information. In our work in SAGOT, we take issues of sustainability very dear and close to our heart. We have formed a partnership between the government, private sector, and non-state actors, known as the Green Reference Group, which is chaired by the Vice President's Office, Permanent Secretary, involving the private sector, where the representation of the private sector comes through many businesses, but championed by the CEO Roundtable. And in that particular group, we have developed a tool to measure compliance of business on sustainability measures. And I welcome all of you to visit our website, SAGCOT, and download that tool, which it will inform you on where and what you should do in order to ensure compliance on sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kirenga. So we have a tool, we have an open source tool that is accessible. Hopefully it's also in Swahili, so the smallholder farmers can also access it. It is in Swahili, yeah. Awesome. But you've also touched on something that has given me also a great segue to Professor Ngoi's question. For any field or any sector to thrive, you need an enabling ecosystem. And part of that ecosystem, I'm envisioning the academia, right? Academic institutions have such a huge role to play. So my question to you, Professor Ngoi, is what other areas should academic institutions like yourself be playing when it comes to skills development in agriculture? And if you could also give us maybe, if you have a situational analysis or an overview of where we are when it comes to skills development in the agriculture sector in Tanzania. Karibu.
So I think when it comes to skills development, broadly speaking, and the role of academic institutions, traditionally academic institutions have been known to, production of knowledge, really. That has been our kind of business mainly. Through training, retraining, research, consultancies, and outreach. Now, when it comes to skills, I think I will start where we have not been doing well, I have to admit, and then where maybe we have been doing things business as usual, which should not be the case, actually. So when it comes to skills, yes, we have been developing skills across centuries, broadly speaking. I'm not speaking only for my university, Mzumbe, but then what we have been missing, I think it's mainly soft skills. We have been developing a lot of hard skills, and we have been kind of producing a lot of students well qualified in mathematics, in engineering, in economics, in accounts, but really, I think we have been missing it when it comes to developing soft skills. And I'm a lot in talk with people in the industry, employers, captains and titans of the industry, the likes of Kirenga, the likes of Rukonga, and all those here, John and staff. Really, I think when it comes to skills, we have been missing the soft skills part of skills development.
But sorry, Professor, yes. Just to cut you off, how relevant is soft skills to smallholder farmers? Because for some reason, when we speak about soft skills, people always envision these 21st century skills to be more for employability and not necessarily for entrepreneurship. So how relevant are they really? I'm thinking of a farmer who is in Tandahimba today, alafu unaenda kumwambia soft skills.
Yeah, of course. It might not necessarily be soft skills of that smallholder farmer, although it might also apply. But then remember, this smallholder farmer, being Gambozi, Mbarali, Tandaimba, is being saved by those who have come out of the universities. Sokoine, Mzumbe, Ardi, you name them. Now, if they do not have that soft, maybe I should have said what I mean by soft skills first. Well, I don't have an academic definition, but includes things like teamwork, resiliency, trust, ability to work over time and all this, Those things that are hardly taught in a typical classroom, but which are very important, again, for someone to be able to function in a society, including functioning and interacting with smallholder farmers. So we have people with extremely good GPAs, first classes, but really they cannot interact with a farmer. They don't work in a team, issues of trust and all this. So I think those are part of issues that academic institutions, we should be doing much, much better. And in this context now, we include now, of course, identifying those skills, training, retraining, and there should be not really generic soft skills. Really, they should be, at the end of the day, both soft and hard, agriculture-specific skills. Yeah, because at the end of the day, when we are training, I do train economics, I do entrepreneurship, it might be really generic, but really agriculture, as all of us here would agree, is something very specific actually. And even agriculture itself, when you break it down, you have to be even crop specific, you have to be animal specific, you know. So I think at the end of the day, what we need is really to identify specific skills that are needed in a specific context. Issues of research and development, of course, is very important. This is really where academic institutions would come in very, very well, you know, doing research, but also after research, dissemination. I think part of what we've been doing and not doing very well is researching maybe for our promotion, researching to become professors, but really there is a missing link when it comes to dissemination. So I think when it comes to academic institutions, which would be better is really disseminating our research findings, you know, unpacking them into simple, user-friendly manner, and of course making them reach to, you know, to the end users. So if this is not the case, then we'll be having piles and piles of PhD thesis, master thesis, bachelor's research reports, and they will hardly really reach, you know, the general user. To come to the end is the question of incubation, really. We have to incubate business minds, and I'm not sure whether Sugeko is here. Himario should be in-house. But then really, I'm saying this because to me is one of those big examples where Sokoine University has been incubating people in the agriculture sector. I know quite a lot of young men and women there, and Professor Anna Tem, where now, you know, I think academic institutions should be playing more of that role, and we have not been doing much so, indeed.
Thank you very much, Professor Ngoy. Before we continue, I've been informed that we are live on Millard.io YouTube TV as well as Zoom. So we're also going to be taking questions from the online audience as we continue. Now, when it comes to, you've spoken about research and development, Professor, and I see Rose. Rose is a powerhouse name, by the way, for those of you who don't know. One of the, I would say, brilliant youth working at the intersection of innovation in agriculture. So my question to you, Rose, and I remember from seeing you years back playing with drones, I'm like, I hope she's really going to, you know, bring some kind of revolution in sustainable farming. But the question is, how to create sustenance in the adoption of science and technology in the transformation of agriculture? And where are we in Tanzania when it comes to that, really?
Thank you. Thank you, Carol. And thanks, everyone, for the platform. I'm humbled. So, sustenance as part of science and technology. So, I would want to respond to that from an angle of something that my fellow panelists have just touched on, which is open data. I feel that having data, there's a lot of players in this sector in agriculture, which is very big, but then data is segmented. So having it in a place where it's available, probably on the web, it's usable, can be identified in a way that can be machine readable, as well as it can be linked with different data sets and finding a number of solutions. Now, McKinsey said at some point, I think in 2013, that having open data unlocks $3 trillion per year globally. So I think it's an opportunity that we need to tackle on, and this kind of data can be in a number of sets. It can be macro, where it can work for the policymakers, but then it can be micro in a way that it can answer to when the farmer wants to go to the farm, then what are they going to plant? When should they plant? How should they fertilize? And then when they're actually harvesting, where do they take this to, so that it connects the value chain in a way that the farmer is not stranded in the middle, or the input supplier is not stranded as in where the farmer is going to get these inputs. Through my reading, I've understood that from 1950s to date, the production has gone up 400 times, but the farmer is still complaining. So that means now that we're talking about 2030, which means more Africans. We're moving from 1.3 billion to actually 1.7. That means there's 4 more that is increasing that needs to be fed. Now that cannot be more land, cannot be more fertilizers. We need to be environmentally friendly in a way that this is where digitalization comes in to answer that. And it's good that we are in a space where we can now use satellite data, we can use drones, but we can also use the small digital devices that we carry. So today, it's being said that every single person sort of generate 1.7 megabytes per second of data. So now that's a lot of data that should be mined in a way that it gives us answers into what is happening as far as agriculture is concerned, and answer all that this smallholder farmer needs to know in order for them to progress and in order for them to plug into the value chain from seeds all the way to markets and to the end consumer.
Before I let you go, how applicable is this considering the literacy levels amongst smallholder farmers? I'm assuming like you're going there, you're trying to push for the data revolution, and they're looking at you like, what are you talking about? Yeah?
Exactly. So this needs to be translated to something that we all know. I'll give an example onto what we do. So we have a platform that we call Jembe Kilimo. And as far as we use drone data, we use satellite data, what goes to the end consumer is a simple message that advises them accordingly to what we see on their profiled platform. So it needs to be digested to something that is chewable by players along the value chain. So we're not preaching all these big words to smallholder farmers, but we're digesting it to a way that really tackles, makes them decide onto how they're going to farm.
Okay, thank you for that, Rose. Maximilian, you, well, as a university, college, you are a beneficiary of the Kilimo Viwanda Scholarship Program, which is sponsored and supported by SBL. How impactful has this program been for your college, but also, the wider community?
Okay, thank you. Good morning. Sorry, my voice is not like
Can you speak closer to the mic, please? Yeah, thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The college has been benefited almost 3 times now, and the program is still going on. It has touched many number of students who are eligible to pay the school fees, but also had these students who are coming from the poor families and poor background that they have a dreams to go on with their studies, but the challenge was the school fees. So they were not able to proceed with their studies. But with the scholarship of Serengeti, then they were able, because we chosen them based on their background, and they were offered the scholarship to proceed with their studies in college. It is a big impact for them, because some of them, they even decided to formulate a kind of an entrepreneurship group where they are trying to create an employment for other students who are completing to join them, so that at the end of the day, it will be a kind of a remarkable for the college and even for Serengeti that they have assisted a number of students who are now trying to help a young Tanzanian out there and a number of farmers in our country.
Okay, thank you for that. Sorry, I was just going through the online questions and seeing how I can merge this with the follow-up questions that I have for you. Mr. Okonges, I'm going to come to you again. How should communities organize themselves to benefit from agriculture and its value chain? Because when it comes to the value chain, it's still quite, what should I say, it's a tedious conversation in Tanzania when we speak about the value chain, mnyororo wa thamani, and how we can really, support the whole value chain. So what exactly can communities do right, to organize themselves to benefit from agriculture, particularly in the value chain?
Thank you, Carol. So from what I understand, in terms of the communities, the underlying word is like organize, but then the details of organizing is very, very important. And again, you also need to understand the communities like a forestry. You have soft and hardwood, you have grass, you have every kind of individuals within the community. So for me, I think the first and foremost thing is also about understanding the community, understanding themselves in terms of available opportunities and how they can tap on these opportunities. For me, that is very, very critical. So within the community, then they will also understand, okay, we are a community of producers. We are the community of service providers, like the community of individuals that are providing IT services, the community of service providers that are actually giving the advisory services to the community. But also, there are also communities of off-takers. They belong to the same community. They come, they buy, they stock, and they resell what has been produced by the communities. But at the same time also, I look at the community in terms of organizing, in terms of having legal entities, getting registered, because you cannot benefit if you are not able to mobilize enough raw materials to be sold to off-takers, and that is very, very critical. For that matter, they need also to organize in terms of accessing advisory services, financial services, but at the same time also, where possible, push for a particular policy change. Now, I look at the community as one part of the triangle, because the community doesn't exist in a vacuum. So within the community, you have the public. And the public has the role to play to support the community, no matter how well the community may be organized. If the public sector is not brought in, they may not be able to perform well. So we need good systems, we need good institutions within the public sector that are able to provide necessary public goods that are demanded by the communities in terms of good road networks, in terms of energy and those kind of things. And then the third angle is the systems, the environment that provide issues of market, issues of services, and for me, these are also very, very critical. So for when the community get organized, they need to see how they are organized along the value chain nodes. The producers, the off-takers, the service providers, storages and packaging and processing, but also other service providers giving the financials and all kind of materials. And to benefit from the value chain, to end up my intervention on that, I think we also need to invest in terms of research, because we live in a very dynamic environment where the product today may not be the same product demanded within the market tomorrow. So they also need to make sure that they have market intelligence providers, and this could also be part of the community that are providing such services. But at the same time also, in terms of capacities, that is entrepreneurial skills is very, very important. You don't produce for the sake of producing. You produce because you want to make money. And I think term has gone where we used to say, oh, Tanzania ina chakula cha kutosha. So what does that mean to an individual who wants to make money? So we need to, how much money are communities making out of their own investment? And the last comment is about actually, it's a question actually. The communities getting organized, some of them, they feel like, okay, you want me to be in the ushirika, and there is also ushirika phobia within the country. And for that matter, you need a good language that helps them understand that if you are well organized and registered, you can easily access services. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Okonge. Mr. Kirenga, your second question was on how agricultural stakeholders can become more compliant in promoting inclusive green growth. Now, I know you touched on that open source document that you have on your website, so I'm going to ask you to touch on that once again in terms of what more we can do, but also I'm going to present this comment to you and ask you for your general comment on the same. There's a comment from our online audience which says, traditionally, small-scale participation in the productive sectors have been subject of non-viability in terms of mismatch between time and other resources invested and the outcome. How can this be reversed in the context of today's discussion? I know it's a mouthful, but please try.
Indeed, it is. First of all, I would like to share the following facts. That in Tanzania, when we talk about smallholder farmers or smallholders, it means the majority of the people involved in agriculture, and that constitutes the majority of the labor force in Tanzania. And therefore, issues of making sure that they are competitive is now critical. In our partnership, right from the very beginning, we were very conscious of what is happening in Tanzania and actually in the rest of the continent of Africa, where productivity and competitiveness is slightly about 25% of the potential. For most of the crops that we produce, the industrial work the value addition that is happening, there is room for improvement and even greater participation. We all know that Africa imports a lot of food. We also import a lot of raw materials that are being used by industries like the brewing industry. Those materials can be produced locally. How can we unlock this? It has been said time and time again that the African farmer, especially the smallholder farmer, is not benefiting from the technological revolution that has taken place in the world. And that is why the African agriculture is stagnated at that low level of efficiency. But let's look at what can we do. In the partnership and also in the agriculture, where we have involved our people, the government, the private sector, such as EABL, yes. We have seen the transformation happening. Let's look at the most important crop like maize. In the Southern Highlands, the average per hectare production, the output, is around 2 to 3 tons for the farmers that have used improved seeds and fertilizers. Actually, that can go up to 8 tons per hectare. What needs to be done? Simple things like making sure that your soil health is healthy by controlling issues like soil acidity. And that is actually in addition to putting fertilizers, and you have to know what type of fertilizer are you applying. You have to know the plant population, and also you have to take care of your crop after harvesting. And that's when you reach productivity of between 8 and 10 tons per hectare as compared to 2 tons. These productivity levels of around 2 tons, this is the achievement that probably an American farmer or somebody in Europe was getting in around 1873. We need to move from there to higher levels of productivity. And as we speak right now, probably you have been following the work that is being done by the Minister of Agriculture and the private sector companies. And here I can mention a few. In the wheat and barley value chains, we have imported the seeds, and these seeds are being distributed to farmers, and these farmers are being trained on how to produce more efficiently. That means actually we'll become more efficient and more competitive, and therefore less importation as far as food is concerned. This is what needs to be done in Africa. Looking at a company like Diageo, I remember the commitment of Diageo in 2013 in World Economic Forum, whereby there was a commitment to source locally. This is an investor that we see living and walking the talk of what was promised about 8 to 7 years ago. This is why it is so important that countries like Tanzania should embrace the private sector. Here we're talking about students that are being trained by this company. We're talking about 400 farmers that they have ready-made market, and a market that is growing at around 10 to 15%. Right now in Tanzania, we're talking about where can we sell the grains that we actually perceive their surplus. It is this kind of market actually ensures sustainability in production. And those 400 farmers, when we talk about them improving and taking care of the environment, these are the farmers that can actually practice those kind of technologies. They can take good seeds, they can take care of the soils, they can actually process a crop that is in the quality required by the market, and in that way ensure this factory will work, or this business will work. But let's come to the sustainability part of it, which is the second part of your question. Partners in the sustainability part, especially the environment, quote unquote, they've been discussing, developing agenda at global level, and then the issue of internalizing what has been agreed and our commitments at the global level is in the form of policies and legislation. And we have institutions like Division of Environment, we have NEMKI, and also sectoral ministries and the private sector. How can we get them together and agreed on a form that is understood by all of them what needs to be done? This is where a partnership like Green Reference Group, whereby guidelines like the one which I've mentioned earlier, provides a tool whereby a company can make reference to what is it that I'm supposed to do if I'm a producer, if I'm a processor, or if I'm actually involved in the marketing, and what are the compliant issues which I have to look at to ensure sustainability. What we do in our partnership is actually taking those knowledge and skills to train the private sector on how to comply to the laws and regulation. But beyond training, we also go and measure the compliance and give them feedback. And in that way, you empower the level of compliance on issues of sustainability. What used to happen in the past is actually for the regulator to go and punish if there is no compliance. But most of the businesses and even producers had no idea on how to comply. Therefore, capacity building is very, very important across the sector. And this is why we have developed that tool. It's available in English and Swahili, and I really, really encourage you to visit the SAGCOT website, www.sagcot.co.tz. I insist .co.tz, sagcot.co.tz, for you to be able to access that particular tool. And particularly for business, I encourage you to do that. Okay. For EABL, I think this partnership goes a long way, and I'm happy to see my colleague here, John Ulanga, and also the new leadership at the company, at the helm of the company. We'll come back to you to see how now we can actually increase the partnership between our two institutions. And Professor Ngowi here is a member of my board of directors, and it's very good to see that whatever that we had planned in the past now is working in Tanzania. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kirenga. That was quite a comprehensive response, but I also like how you put them like, okay, I'm going to be coming back to you very soon. There's still some work to do. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, my panelists, now I have to move into the general audience. We're out of time. So 2 questions, please. I only have time for 2 questions. It can either be a question or a general comment. Thank you very much. Please introduce yourself, where you're from. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Abari. I am Juliette Gallou from the Embassy of France. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much for the panel discussion. It was very interesting. I have maybe a remark and a question to what you said. Couple of weeks ago, the Intergovernmental Expert on Climate Change issued a report saying climate change is here and global warming is going faster than we thought. And even Antonio Guterres, the UN Secretary General, said it's a red flag for humanity. And we are speaking about agriculture, and we know that agriculture, it's a big weight in the climate change. And this morning, I never heard the word organic agriculture, agroecology, natural fertilizer, etc., etc. So I wanted to know what's your thought on this? Because we know that organic agriculture is also the future. It's good for sustainability. It's good for future generation. So what do? We are talking about progress. We are talking about innovation. don't you think that organic agriculture is actually the proper innovation and the way forward? Thank you very much.
Quite challenging. Okay, so we didn't say agroecology. What was the other one? Okay, so I'm going to come to Karibu.
Asante. My name's Matthew Ngwai. I'm from Kilimo Maendeleo. Actually, I have a couple of sort of comments that I would like the panelists to probably add some few things to it. Number one, we have seen quite an emerging theme, what we call an ecosystem thinking, which is as a response to value chain fragmentation in this country. So I would like you to weigh in there. What are your thoughts in that movement? Second thing is to Rose, the issue of data. Usually data in agriculture or any sector is usually a transaction driven.